2023 was an incredible year for film, and while this year didn't have Oppenheimer or Poor Things, there were still some great films. Here's my list for my top 10. Keep in mind, I have not yet seen all the films I want to see for 2024, but when I do, you can see my most updated ranking on my Letterboxd. First, here's some quick honorable mentions. Number 20 was Drive Away Dolls from Ethan Coen. Number 19 was Civil War from Alex Garland. 18 was Beetlejuice from Tim Burton. 17 was Kinds of Kindness from Yorgos Lanthimos. 16 was Lisa Frankenstein from Zelda Williams. 15 was Love Lies Bleeding from Rose Glass. 14 was The Substance from Coralie Fargat. 13 was Deadpool and Wolverine from Sean Levy. 12 was Furiosa from George Miller. And 11 was Your Monster from Caroline Lindy. Now on to my top 10. Number 10 is The First Omen from Arkasha Stevenson. This is one of the first films I saw from this year, and I didn't think it would end up in my top 10, but it did, and I think it's a solid horror movie. It's a prequel to The Omen, but it doesn't feel like a prequel, and I think it can very well stand on its own. It has some cinematography that really sticks out during some scenes, and it really just adds to the horror of the film. The twist is very easy to figure out, but I think that the horror elements in the film are strong enough that it doesn't really ruin it. And I just think it really adds to the horror of what is really happening to our main character. Number 9 is Longlegs from Oz Perkins. I remember seeing there was so much hype around this movie, especially with the reveal of Nicolas Cage's character. And I was very excited to see Nicolas Cage take on such a role like this. The film also stars Micah Monroe, and I already knew she was going to be good. She's becoming a horror icon, and Longlegs is no exception to that. Going back to the marketing and trailers, the film has this 70s vibe to it. 70s and 90s, it sort of flips between the two. And I think it's absolutely perfect. The coloring and just the production design is perfect as well. It almost feels empty and restricted, adding to the world of the main character, Lee Harker, whose personality is more monotonous compared to the rest of the characters around her. It's like we're in her world, and this is the darkness that's in her world. I think the twist is a little strange at first, but it leaves much to think about in who or what the true evil is in the movie and just life in general. I think it's a really good movie. I think it's a solid horror from this year. Number 8 is Wicked from John Chu. And I have to say, seeing the trailer, I wasn't that impressed by it. I didn't think it was going to be that good, but seeing it really changed my mind. And I think what really makes it good is the dedication of the actors and crew behind it. You can really tell from interviews and just from the film alone that they really do care about this film and this world. Ariana Grande really impressed me. I knew she was in theater and has done theater productions before, but she truly immersed herself in Glinda, and I personally think she's the standout performance. I just loved watching her character and seeing her come to life. I also thought the pacing was really great. It's 160 minutes, which is a long movie, and I think the pacing was perfect. I didn't even realize it was 160 minutes at all. I mean, there's still a part 2 to it, which I'm very excited to see. Number 7 is Sing Sing from Greg Quidar, and this movie is really something special. It's such an interesting plot. It's about a theater group in a prison. It's actually a true story, and I think it resonated so well and was handled so well in this film. One thing I really loved was a lot of the cast are former inmates who are actually a part of the real theater group, and I think that just adds so much more personality and depth to it than if you were to just hire a bunch of actors. I just think it worked perfectly. Coleman Domingo was incredible as ever, and I would love to see him win Best Actor at the Oscars. It's about time. But the standout performance was from Clarence Divine I. Macklin, who played himself. I just thought he had a phenomenal performance. You could really see his character change and evolve so much throughout the film, and the audience just can really truly connect and care about him. With Domingo and Macklin's character, they have a really great relationship. It really develops throughout the film, and it's really beautiful. It's a really great movie, and I just wish A24 promoted it more. Number 6 is Conclave from Edward Berger. And I knew this movie was going to be good, but I loved it a lot more than I thought I would. It still shocks me how a film about electing a new pope could be so entertaining. I started it one night, but I stopped it. And the next day, I thought about it all day until I could finally finish it, which was so like surprising to me. The performances are amazing. There's some of the best actors in there. You got Ray Fiennes, Stanley Tucci, Isabella Rossellini. They were amazing. The cinematography was a real standout. It was really purposeful. A lot of the wide shots showed how big and important of an event it truly is, and it makes it feel larger than life. You could almost say it's godly. And the scenes discussing and discovering the corruption in the church are a lot tighter, and it makes it feel it's more of a secret and it's dangerous, and I really enjoyed that. I think this movie is so fun. It's really weird to say, but it's a fun movie. It's just so entertaining to see everything go down. Number 5 is Dune Part 2 from Denis Villeneuve. I remember seeing the first one and I thought it was good, but Part 2 is leagues above. My main issue from the first film was Timothée Chalamet's performance. Paul Atreides felt really empty to me, but in the second one, Timothée Chalamet really comes out, and you can truly see the gradual descent into madness that Paul Atreides goes through. With the addition of Florence Pugh, Austin Butler, and Zendaya actually have a role in the film, really brought this thing to life. It's everything that was so great about part 1, but made 1,000 times better. It's gonna be a guaranteed sci-fi classic in the future, like Star Wars, Blade Runner. I could definitely see it being something that people will look back on. And I'm really excited for the third one. I think it's going to be great. I'm excited to see Anya Taylor-Joy come in. Number 4 on my list is I Used to Be Funny from Ali Panku. And the film stars Rachel Sennett as a comedian. And I think Rachel Sennett is one of the best comedy actresses we have working today. However, she does take a more serious tone in I Used to Be Funny. And her performance really reminds me of her first film, Shiva Baby, and her performance in that. And I just think Rachel Sennett and the director have such a great sense of balance in terms of comedy and serious moments. The film does deal with trauma, and I just think the balance between the two is really good in this film. The film also reminds me of The Fallout by Megan Park in the way that it's shot and just the way that it feels, I would say. So if you like that movie, I would definitely recommend I Used to Be Funny. Again, with trauma, I think it does a really good job of diving into trauma and how it can affect relationships as well as your passions and dealing with it, as well as overcoming it and becoming who you used to be. In this case, Rachel Sennett's character, who's a comedian, wants to go back to being funny herself. Number 3 is I Saw the TV Glow from Jane Schonenbrunn. And I don't think I'll ever stop thinking about this film. It really just stays in your mind after you watch it. And I truly think that this is an extension of what was great from her first film, We're All Going to the World's Fair. The film, I would say, covers mainly 2 topics for the most part, themes about being transgender as well as nostalgia, and how things aren't how they used to be, and how it can just be scary growing up. I think with the broadness of themes covered in this film, I think it allows for a lot of people to relate to it, and not just a certain person. Another thing I really liked about the film was its special effects. There were special effects used for the creatures in the film, and I think they were done really well and fit the aesthetic of the film and don't feel too out of place. I think it's a great film, especially one that you should watch at midnight alone. It's perfect for that. Number 2 is Anora from Sean Baker. And Sean Baker has made no bad films, and this statement still stands with Anora. Anora has been my most anticipated film throughout the year since the Cannes Film Festival, and I finally got to watch it, and I'm so happy because it's amazing. Baker maintains his themes of sex work and destigmatizing it, but Anora is a little bit different. It's very obvious that the film has a bigger budget and has a multitude of locations rather than his other films like The Florida Project or Red Rocket. I think in this film, comedy is also a really big focus compared to some of his others. I know Red Rocket had some comedy in it, but I think this one really put comedy at the forefront, and this movie is actually really funny. I think a large part of it has to do with Mikey Madison. Her performance was amazing, and she deserves the Oscar. Along with Madison, I think the other cast in the film is amazing, and they all complement each other so well, and the banter is just so entertaining to watch. It isn't a Sean Baker film without a hard-hitting ending, and Anora does not shy away from that, and it's probably one of the saddest endings in his films. It's truly a perfect way to end the film, if you know, you know. This film just truly masters the blend between comedy and the tribulations that come from being in sex work, but either way, the film is tons of fun. And my number one film for the year for 2024 was Challengers from Luca Guadagnino. It was either this or Anora for my number one spot, but I rewatched Challengers just to see where I wanted to place it at the end, and I knew it had to be number one. Like Anora, this film is tons of fun, and it was probably one of the most fun theater experiences I've had in a while. The film is so captivating, you don't want to look away. Luca really made tennis interesting in this film. The performances were great, obviously. Zendaya was the standout. I think she did a really good job of blending that need for playing tennis, but also wanting to be with someone. Along with that, the film is very sexy. It's a sexy film. But there's no sex scenes. The only sex scenes, like the closest thing to sex, would be the tennis scenes. And I think it's brilliant that Luca was able to make the tennis scenes like sex. I just love how this film can blend both obsession and love with both the tennis, the game of tennis, and the relationships in the film. I just think it's great in every aspect, and it's a great rewatch. I feel like you tend to notice things that you didn't notice previous time, and then every time you sort of look at the characters differently and determine what side you're sort of on. I just think it's great. And those are my top 10 films for 2024. I think this year was really great for film. In the beginning, I wasn't sure how it was going to turn out, but it turned out really good. And I can't wait for next year.